Hello, Wizards here. Welcome again to AOS 2024. Right now, I'm gonna try to solve with you day 9. If you don't know what AOS is, refer to my first video or check out the first link in the description. Second link is for you to join us. And yeah, that's it. Let's go. Today we have the website, not the fit on the machine as before. That's cool. Day 9, 9 o'clock. Make GRC fun, tell no one. Alright, we're gonna learn what GRC is. But let's now read the story. Max KD and Glitch want to hire an e-discovery company to process some forensics data for their investigation. They have invited bids from third parties for this purpose. 3 companies have a bid for project. Max KD and Glitch now need to do a risk assessment on all 3 of these companies to identify the one with the least amount of risk, so that they can move forward. All 3 companies were required to fill out the questionnaire based on which a risk assessment will be done. Introduction to GRC. Governance, risk and compliance plays a crucial role in any organization to ensure that their security practices align with their personal, regulatory and legal obligations. Although good security practices help protect the business from suffering a breach, depending on the sector in which an organization operates, there may be external security regulations that it needs to adhere to. Let's take a look at some examples in the financial sector. Reserve Bank regulations. In most countries, banks have to adhere to security regulations set forth by the country's reserve bank. This ensures that each bank adheres to a minimum security level to protect the funds and information of their customers. Swift CSP is Content Security Policy, cloud service provider, Banks use Swift network to communicate with each other and send funds. After a massive bank breach resulted in 81 million fraud and Swift transfer, this is the link to insane 81 million Bangladesh bank heist, Swift created the Customer Security Program, which sets the standard of security for banks to connect to the Swift network. Then data protection. As banks hold sensitive information about their customers, they have to adhere to the security standards created by data regulator, usually the reverse bank in most countries. When you run a large organization with multiple different teams, how do you stay on top of all these regulations and ensure that good quality is applied by all teams? This is where GRC comes in. They play a crucial role in understanding external security standards, translating them into internal standards, and then ensuring that they are applied by all teams to help reduce the organization's risk to an acceptable level. Let's take a quick look at the 3 functions of GRC. First, we have governance. It is a function that creates the framework that an organization uses to make decisions regarding information security. Governance is the creation of organizational security strategy, policies, standards, and practices in alignment with the organization's overall goal. Governance also defines the roles and responsibilities that everyone in the organization has to play to help ensure these security standards are met. Then we get risks. Risks is the function that helps to identify assets, quantify and mitigate risks to the organization's IT assets. Risks help the organization understand potential threats and vulnerabilities and the impact that they could have if a threat actor were to execute or exploit. By simply turning on a computer on an organization has some level of risk of a cyber attack. The risk function is important to help reduce the overall risk to an acceptable level and develop contingency plans in the event of a cyber attack where risk is realized. Then the compliance. This is the function that ensures that the organization adheres to all external legal, regulatory, and industry standards. For example, GDPR, or aligning the organization's security to an industry standard such as NIST or ISO 27001. So about the NIST and GDPR, this is the EU about RODO, and GDPR, so all the data protections, like how we should store data, we should inform users what do we do with this data, and all that. Right. Intro to risk assessment. Before Max KD and Glitch chose an e-discovery company to handle their forensics data, they need to figure out which one is the safest choice. This is where a risk assessment comes in. It's a process to identify potential problems before they happen. Think of it as checking the weather before going on a hike. If there's a storm coming, you'd want to know ahead of time so you can either prepare or change your plans. That's right. Why are risk assessments done? They're like reality check for business. They connect cybersecurity to the bigger picture, which minimizes business risks. In other words, it's not just about securing data, but about protecting the business as a whole. Imagine you run an online store that collects customer information like names, addresses, and credit card details. If that data gets stolen because of weak security system, it's not just the data that's at risk. Reputation, customer trust, and even profits are on the line. A risk assessment could have helped you identify a weak point and fix it before anything went wrong. For Max KD English, assessing the risks of each e-discovered company helps them decide which one is less likely to have a data breach or other issues that could disrupt the investigation. Every business's main goal is to generate revenues and profits. For most businesses, cybersecurity does not directly contribute to revenue generation or profit maximization. Businesses decide to spend part of their hard-earned revenue on cybersecurity to avoid the risk of revenue or reputation loss resulting from a cyber threat. Businesses often take these steps to achieve this goal. We will now work through the process of completing a risk register. A risk register tracks the progress of risk mitigation and non-open risks. An example of such is shown in the animation below. Let's take a closer look. And risk name, description, last updated name, likelihood, impact if realized, risk score, and owner. Alright. Identification of risks. To assess risks, we must first identify the factors that can cause revenue or reputation loss resulting from cyber threats. This exercise requires carefully assessing the attack surface of the organization and identifying areas which might be used to harm the organization. Examples of identified risks can be an unpatched web server, high-privileged user account without pro security controls, third-party vendor who might be affected by malware connecting to the organization's network, a system for which support has ended by the vendor and still in production. An organization might identify several other risks in addition to examples. However, in addition to just identifying risks, these risks also need to be quantified. After all, the likelihood of materializing a risk on a cordoned-off and isolated server differs greatly from that of a public-facing server hosting web frontend. Similarly, the impact of a risk materializing on a crown jewel, such as main database server containing confidential information, differs greatly from that of a web developer server with dummy data. Assigning likelihood of each risk. To quantify the risk, we need to identify how likely or probable is it that the risk will materialize. We can then assign a number to quantify this likelihood. This number is often 1 to 5. The exact scale differs from organization to organization and from framework to framework. Likelihood can also be called probability of materialization of a risk. An example scale for likelihood can be 1 is improbable, remote, occasional, probable, frequent. It might be noticed that while we are trying to quantify the risk, we still don't define exact quantities of what constitutes several times and what constitutes regularly. The reason is that the likelihood for a server which has high uptime requirements will be different from a server that is used infrequently. Therefore, the likelihood scale will differ from case to case and from asset to asset. On the flip side, we can see that this scale provides us with a very usable scale of differentiating between different probabilities of occurrence of a certain event. Assigning impact to each risk. Once we have identified the risks and likelihood, next step is to quantify the impact. For example, if there is a public-facing web server that is unpatched and gets breached, what will be the impact on the organization? Different organizations calculate impact in different ways. Some might use CVSS score, others might use their own rating derived from the confidentiality from the CIA triad. Of a certain asset, and others might base it on the severity categorization of the incidents. Similar to likelihood, we also quantify impact, often on a scale of 1 to 5. First is informational, and some bigger are critical. Risk ownership. The last step to performing a risk assessment is to decide what to do with the risks that were found. We can start by performing some calculations on the risk itself. The simplest calculation takes the likelihood of the risk and multiplies with the impact to get the risk score. Some risk raters make use of more advanced ratings such as DREAD, which is come by Microsoft to assess risks. Alright. Assigning scores to the risk helps organizations prioritize which risks should be remediated first. While you may think the simplest answer is secure, since there is no risk in real life, it isn't that simple. Implementing more security costs more money, and it doesn't help if we spend more money on security than what we risk losing if we leave open the risk. In this last step, we decide who owns the risks that we identified. These team members are then responsible for performing an additional investigation into what the cost would be to close the risk versus what could we lose if the risk is realized. In this case, cases where the cost of security is lower, we can mitigate the risk with more security controls. However, where it's higher, we can accept the risk. Actual risks should always be documented and reviewed periodically to ensure that the cost has not changed. Alright. Internal and third-party risk assessment. Risk assessments are not done internally in our organization, but can also be used to assess the risk by a third party may hold to our organization. Today, it's very common to make use of third parties to outsource key functions of your business. For example, a small organization may outsource its financial division to a large auditing firm, or a large organization may outsource development of some of its applications to a software engineering firm. However, this changes the risk as a compromise of the third party, where we may not have full control over their security, could still result in a compromise of our data or sensitive assets. As such, we need to consider the risks the third party poses to us. Right. Internal risks help companies understand the risks they have within their own walls, like taking a good look around your house to check if there are any leaks or broken windows. For example, if a company finds that software is outdated, it can prioritize updating it to prevent potential attacks. Internal risk assessments help identify weak spots in security, direct resources to the most important areas, stay compliant with security rules and regulations. Why do you do it? But for third parties, companies don't just assess themselves, they also need to evaluate the risks that come from working with other companies like vendors, suppliers, or partners. This is called a third-party risk assessment, and it's important because one weak link in the chain can affect everyone. Let's make it simple. Glitch and Masquerade want to make sure that whichever e-discovery company they choose won't leak or lose sensitive data, so they will be reviewing if these companies 1. Have a good security measures to keep data safe, follow data protection rules, and align with security standards that they have in place. By doing a third-party risk assessment, Masquerade and Glitch are reducing potential supply chain risks, making sure the investigation doesn't run into trouble because of weak security link in the chain. In order to do this, Masquerade has to create a risk assessment that can be sent to the potential third parties. Based on the answers provided by the third parties, Masquerade can then make an informed decision on which party would be the best. Right, now it's time to test our knowledge. We can use this button to show the site. And yeah, what is GRC? This was the first question. Let's copy this. Governance, risk, and compliance. Copy. Scroll down here and paste. Perfect. Now let's do this task. You'll be assessing 3 vendors based on the responses to security questions. Review the vendor's response to a security question, identify potential risks, and clear this for each risk. Provide a clear description, rate the impact, risk score is automatically calculated, and the vendor risk is sum of all risks for our vendor. Right, I got it. Let's choose maybe data in transit and data at rest needs to be included with the AES encryption as the requirement for support. What type of AES does your company use for data at rest? I'd say it's using data in transit is alright, but at rest it could also be accessed, so I'd say it's high but possible. Like, I don't know, compromising resting data. Alright. Now let's go to the question 2. What kind of access controls do you have to ensure the data is accessed only by authorized person? Data could be accessed only on a need-to-know basis. What is a need-to-know basis? Sorry, English isn't my first language. Let's maybe Google it. And it's gonna load. All right, I can maybe disconnect from the VPN. This will for sure make my machine run smoothly. If you type something they need to know, they... Alright, so it's like need to know basis. At the time they know nothing more. Alright. So it's impact level low. And probably... I can't see really an issue here, because if you're giving as little data to the people as you can, then it's probably a good one. So, leak by a authorized person means probably high but unlikely. I mean, because they have, let's say, medium and likely. Okay, it's lower risk than expected. Alright, so its risk score is lower than expected, so it's... yeah. Question number 3. How long do you keep client data after the case is closed? Less than 1 week. This would be probably also medium, because a threat actor can from our investigation long time. I'd say it's pretty high of impact, but it's also possible. You indicate assessment is higher than expected. Alright, so higher risk, so yeah. Alright, we can complete the assessment. Alright, so if we have lower risk, alright, so because this risk is lower, we can make it, I don't know, too high. Oh yeah, so it's critical, because we'll need to... Then the risk is higher risk than expected. Alright, so it's like... Let's add this. It's probably like medium, I'd say. Discuss about the impact and likelihood of adjustment. Your estimate indicates lower risk than expected. Alright. It's low impact, but it's possible. Lower risk than expected. It's... investigation, maybe after compromising whole infrastructure. Maybe just your estimate indicates risk higher than expected. Why is it higher than expected? Because like I have a risk score, and because impact and likelihood. Let's maybe move impact. Score is correct, so it needs to be 2. So I'd say it's likely to occur, but medium. Yeah, it's like likely to occur at medium. It's critical. Yeah, it's critical because for me, but unlikely to occur. All right, yeah, actually that's it. In 1, 2, 3, 4. This is probably critical because when you compromise data, then you do it, then you really get access to everything you've worked for. Yeah, I didn't think of that. Alright. Complete assessment. That's third. It's red actor can intercept the data and has to decode it. It can have like high impact, but it's very unlikely. By all people in the organization, yeah, it's critical impact level and very likely to occur. Because, yeah, everyone can leak important info. Not Ingo, but info. Your assessment risk indicates lower than expected. Alright, so it probably was something like, yeah, it's critical and very likely. Yeah. How long do you keep? 2 weeks to 1 month. I mean, it's a critical impact because, yeah, but it's also likely to occur, I'd say. Attacker can compromise internal infrastructure and gain access to our data. Let's add risk. Alright, yeah, that's good. Let's complete the assessment. And now we should find known for the translate. Yeah, it's critical and it's likely to occur because, yeah, attacker can intercept data from transit. Yeah. Your assessment indicates higher risks than, yeah, so it's probably high. Yeah. That's a good question too. They can be by all the people on the relevant team. It's medium, I'd say, because, yeah, it's too many people have access to data. I doubt anyone reads this, so yeah. Assessment indicates lower, alright, so high significance and very likely higher risk than expected. Low? Significantly lower risk. Alright, so it's like your assessment indicates lower risk than expected. It's high but possible, maybe. Lower risk than expected. It's like it has an impact. It's like 3, 6 to occur. I mean, critical data is it's critical, but it's possible to occur, maybe. Yep. And then question 3, more than 1 month. It's critical and it's likely. I don't know. Too long holding data. I don't know. Lower risk than expected, really. So it's very likely. Alright, we have finished the risk assessment. Let's complete it. And yeah, review the risk and select the vendor with the lowest risk. Alright, so because we have, let's grab some calculator maybe. Calculator. And yeah, Green Tiger will be 3 times 2, it's 6 plus 4 plus 4 and equals to 14. I'm just gonna type it here. First is 14. Second will be 3 plus 16 plus 12, so here it's 31. Alright, it sounds like too much. And then we have 9 plus 8 plus 16, which gives me 33, which is even more. So I'd say we'd go with Green Tiger because they've got the most secure policies. Yeah, and we identified the vendor with the lowest risk score we have. You can copy the flag, paste it here, and yeah, you can check out the room risk management task. Let's see if it's free or not. But after all, yeah, that's really about it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe, leave a like if you liked the video, and yeah, wait for tomorrow so you can meet with me here in another day. And yeah, that was paid. That's really about it. Cheers, see you next time.